right. If it's Tuesday, it must be time for Cloud Talk Live. Everyone, welcome to the program. That's right. My name is Jeff DeVerter, and I am back this week. I am back from vacation. I was gone for the past week. You didn't know that because I left on Wednesday and I came back yesterday. So me and the family were running around Washington, D.C., learning about all the cool stuff of our nation's founding. So, hey, but we're back now, back with another Cloud Talk Live. Folks, I would love for you to introduce yourselves in the comments below. Love to know who you are. Love to know where you are. So tell us where in the world you're coming from. So this is an international audience, and it's always exciting to get to see and hear from you from all of these different locations around the world. And if you want to get a hold of us, well, it's just super easy. Just send us an email to solve@rackspace.com. That will come to me. It'll come to the entire production team. Megan gets it. Daniel gets it. Daniel's producing today. Everyone, say hi to Daniel in the chat. And so, we'd love to hear from you. So if you have any comments, suggestions, that sort of thing. Hey, Houston's here. Michael is here. Michael, you're almost a regular now. We've got DFW, where we're great showing from Texas. Hey, and the first fan of our guest, Jackie, live from the doctor's office. Thank you for joining in, Jackie. India is here. All the gang is here. So welcome, everyone. Folks, this is, it's part of what we do here at the Solve program, this live event. But there's all sorts of information. There are podcasts, there are articles, all sorts of things over at rackspace.com/solve. Hey, San Antonio's here. Welcome. We always love some hometown favorites, Donato. And also the podcast is available. You can subscribe to it. The audio from all of these can be found here on the podcast as well. We strip the video away. We make it all pretty and sound fancy, and then put it in. Oh, Sean's here too. Hi, Sean. And make it available on the podcast. So if you haven't subscribed, I recommend that you do. Consider it a personal favor, I would ask. Welcome, welcome. Oh, we have so many people here. Florida's here. India's here. Rio Grande Valley. I tell you, Texas is showing up today. Welcome, everyone from Texas. This is my first day back from vacation and first day back here in the great state of Texas. Hey, folks, so I'm excited to bring up our guest today. And this is an ex-racker. I say ex-racker. It just means she doesn't get her paycheck here anymore. But once a racker, always a racker. That's what we say. But it's my great pleasure to introduce to you somebody that we like to call CK, but the world knows as Christine Kolbeson. So, folks, she is spent a lot of time here. She's now over at Bill.com, and I'm excited for her to get to share her story today. So, Daniel, with that, why don't we go ahead and bring Christine up onto the stage? Let's go. Christine, how's that for intro music?
The best intro I've ever had, really, of my whole life. So it's amazing. Thank you, Jeff and team.
In front of rooms for you, or on your calls, we'll record that. You can just play that.
I love it. Yeah.
Hey, welcome to Cloud Talk Live.
I'm excited to be here. Excited to see, like you said, once a racker, always a racker. My racker friends showing up in support. So thank you, everyone.
They are showing up. Jackie's here. We were going to do this live from Rackspace. She was going to walk up behind me and wait. And all that. But anyway, she had things to do and I didn't get to the office. So we're not there. Anyway, welcome. So you're over at Bill.com. Now, everyone, today, you're going to get to know everything about Christine and her professional life and how she has become a pretty fancy person. What is your title over at Bill?
Yeah, so I am currently the director of the Strategic Program Management Office in our customer experience organization. It's a long title.
It's a long title. In fact, when I was putting it in your little, I call them baseball cards. I was like, this is going to wrap around a few times.
Yeah.
So it's a long title. Why don't you tell us what that means? What do you do over there?
Yeah, so kind of similar, funny enough, to my last role at Rackspace, but I support customer experience in driving all of our strategic objectives and programs forward. So we are also a very customer-centric company and organization. And so we are in a mode of transformation to really, continue to deliver amazing customer experiences. And so I'm here to support the business and ensuring we get stuff done.
I love how this has become such an important role to organizations and putting very talented folks like yourself in charge of them. And that is, what is the customer experience? It really is that blanket kind of overarching role inside of an organization that allows a company to, focus not necessarily, hey, what does the interface look like, or what does this workflow do, or how do we bill customers? It's everything. It encompasses the entire customer experience. And one of the things that we saw through COVID, as the world went through this mass digital transformation, is the hello, Mohammed from Earth. We're glad you're here. And that's really awesome. And yes, there are openings for folks who are new in AWS or an architect in AWS. Go to Rackspace.jobs. Okay, sorry, I get really distracted, Christine. You know
You're
that.
good. I'm there with you, Jeff. So.
Hey, so what I was saying is, as the world went through this mass digital transformation, one of the things that technology really helped to do is to aid in the customer experience. So, okay, I'm just going to have to get distracted again. Yes, there are jobs for Azure people. Go over to Rackspace.jobs. Lots of them, actually. So tell me, what does this mean, like in your day to day, Christine? What do you have to solve for? What are some of these? Strategic was in the title, so strategic means you're looking forward. But I imagine there's a bit of firefighting as well.
Yeah, I think we're all solving like similar problems, right? We're now very remote inclusive company, right? And so how are we providing creative solutions in the way that we are solving SMB's problems when it comes to financial operations and supporting that, not just in a standard way as maybe some of our competitors, but leveling up that experience. And so I think with the ability to have more options at our fingertips, that allows us to innovate what that experience looks like.
That's interesting. So Bill.com's primary customer base, SMBs then?
Correct.
Now, that also tells us a few things. It means that you guys you're not looking for one or two customers that are going to pay a whole lot of money and, bankroll the company. It means you're collecting tons and tons of customers who pay a certain amount that help keep the company in business. So as much as you can share, how many customers does Bill.com have?
That's definitely a pop question. I don't have that on the top of my head right now, but yes, there are many because of the the base that we serve, and so for us, it's really about support at scale to support all those customers and provide consistent experiences.
Yeah. Now you cut your teeth on support at scale over here at Rackspace. We run around. I think our number we publicize is 120,000 customers. A lot of those. We've got some very large enterprises, but we do have a lot of SMBs as well. And you had a similar role here before they swept you away with promises of fame and fortune.
Free coffee.
And free coffee, exactly. Hey, we got that again. So tell me about your journey. I know everybody, we have had lots of women in tech on the program, and it's been so fun to learn the journey because when, especially if you're young in your career out there and you look at these folks, regardless of, who they are or gender, but you look at them in their fancy titles and their fancy roles and you think, oh man, how did they ever get to that point? Well, here's our opportunity to learn one woman's, trajectory. So I would assume then, Christine, as I bait you with a fine question, that you came in at a very high, lofty, impressive title and role when you came to Rackspace.
I did not. I was very much starting out my journey, and which was very terrifying. So I have always been in the technology space in some form of fashion. The funny thing is I'm kind of in a full circle now because I did start out in banking at the very early, right out of college, start of my career. And then took a chance on this company that everybody was really pumping up in the early, it was, Rackspace. I'm like, what is a Rackspace? You have the jokes like, is it a shoe company? So definitely not, And so, yeah, I started off front lines of support. I think I was like the 7th chatter. We were introducing chat support at Rackspace, and I think I was chatter number 7 within at the time it was called Email and Apps. It's now Cloud Office. And so supported that line of business for a few years.
Well, that's interesting because, the email and apps or cloud office business has traditionally, the lion's share of their customers are SMBs. So you're sort of right in your right back home, right?
I have an obsession for SMBs. So
you do. do. And those are the businesses that build the lion's share of economies as well, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
interesting. And it's a different approach. So let's follow that trajectory then, because your good buddy Jackie, who's watching today, followed a similar one. She came
yeah,
in, very much front line. I don't know if you could find a lower position in the company to start in, and everybody has, hey, there's Jackie, has risen up. So let's follow that. How'd you get noticed? How did you choose those next jobs uh,
yeah.
as you're in your career here at Rackspace?
I think one thing, just me in general, I'm just a very curious person. If you go back to my 5 strengths, one of them was learner. And so, I think the concept of a learner is a collector. And I would say, yeah, I do collect some things, but I definitely collect a lot of bits of information. And so early on in my career, I was a risk taker. I was probably one of the first people to sign up for, hey, we don't know what this is going to look like, but you've got a passion for customers, you've got a curiosity to learn. Do you want to go try this thing? And I'd say, yeah, sign me up. Let's do it. I'm really curious what this could look like. And I think what I found, and similar with like Jackie, because we partnered along that journey as well in some of the cloud spaces. I think the thing we had in common was just that curiosity, the love of people, and pulling people together to solve a common thing.
Yeah.
That was really, I think, if I look back in the 11 years that I was at Rackspace, was always the core of my progression and success.
It's really interesting, and that's absolutely a common thread that we've heard repeatedly here as I talk to different leaders inside of technology. And that is, the path was not this arrow straight. I start here and I go there. And it's a willingness to take some risk. I mean, you mentioned that. And then to not necessarily just stay exactly where you are. And hey, I'm an email and app, so I'm going to ride the email and apps or the cloud office train of collaboration. You bounced around. I mean, and it's my recommendation to a lot of folks that I mentor when I'm here. And then he asks, how do I progress in my career? And the reality is don't be afraid to bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce. I mean, stay in a place until you feel like you've learned it and you've created a contribution and you've grown some backfill.
Yeah.
If you can take a few days off and not be around and the world doesn't end at the place,
It doesn't implode. You're good.
that's
Yeah,
right.
there's a piece in a book that I love called Lean In, and she talks about yes, career progression isn't always a ladder. It looks kind of like a jungle gym. So if you've got kids and you've got that big old dome, that's kind of what like the trajectory of my career looked like. Sometimes I went left, sometimes I went down, sometimes I went like in a star. But it all, I collected all this amazing knowledge and built all these relationships along the way. And so for me, that was, I think, really critical and important to me.
Well, you said something a couple of times I'm going to ask a question about in a second, but Taha asked a question. See, folks, if you ask questions, we might actually answer them. So type them in. What skills have you learned over the time that's helped make you successful?
I really think, I think I've got a lot of different experiences. If you look in technology, just kind of, again, from my innate curiosity and just willingness to learn. But it really is, I think, the number one thing that has contributed to my success is just relationship building. And so I've been in roles where I'm not the expert in the area, but not afraid of being vulnerable and saying, hey, I have no idea what this means. Draw it out for me. Help me understand so I can help you navigate, through the waters and get to whatever our goal is, right? And so, I don't know if I don't translate it to like a tangible skill, but for me, it's just such an important piece that I knew I needed to develop really early on in my career.
Well, and I think what that really comes down to, and it's I would call it a skill because it is an aspect of character that needs to be developed, and that is humility. I mean, you are humble enough to say and vulnerable enough to say, I don't know, but if you explain it to me, I bet I know the people who can help solve this problem. And that goes back to, I think, another skill of yours that I've witnessed, and that is, and you've talked about it several times, and that is, you mentioned building relationships. It's not, we're on Cloud Talk Live about all of the things that happen in technology. But the reality is technology is the engine, but it takes people to make that stuff work. And it's, how Yeah, I imagine that's a part of who you are natively and building those relationships. But can you think of any moments where you thought, oh, I need to lean in here and I don't feel like it, but I need to lean in here?
Yeah, I think a couple of years into my role as a cloud leader, I managed a team in partnership with Jackie and some of the old school cloud greats, where we were responsible for ensuring that we had 100% uptime during really crucial events like the Super Bowl or Shark Tank. And I always joke, I've never written a line of code in my life, but I know what 100% means. So,
It means the
um,
website responds.
yes. And so it's just, leaning in with those really technical minds to ensure that like we've got all of our things in place. We're, predicting what could happen in the future, and building fail safes to ensure like those really horrible things don't happen. And so again, um, I think those partnerships were really successful because me just being curious and saying, no, explain it to me again. Let's go to a whiteboard, which I miss. Let's go to a whiteboard and help me understand this, so that we can collectively work together to ensure that, we are committing what we say we're going to commit to our
Yeah.
customers.
Yeah, thank you so much for posting that as well. Interpersonal skills are one of those top things. And some people either say, hey, I'm a people person or I'm not a people person. But you got to be a people person, even if you're not.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have to flex that muscle all the time. You can still be a
Right.
coder in a dark room,
Yeah.
but at some point you're going to have to come out and talk to a human.
Yeah. I'm married to one and we make it work, so.
And where did you find that person, I wonder?
Yeah. No, and I think that's a great balance because again, right now I lead program managers, but for most of my leadership roles at Rackspace, I led a lot of technical folks with a variety of backgrounds, right? And so it is definitely a two-way street, and seeing how you guys can both flex your strengths and work on each other's opportunities to solve problems.
Christine, you've mentioned strengths a few times, and to the rest of the world, hearing the word strength, it means something you may be good at. But at Rackspace, strengths means something entirely different. It does mean you're kind of good at it, but it also means it's part of who you are natively. We do a thing called Strengths Finders here at Rackspace, and it says that basically there are, was it 34, 36? I forget the number.
35.
Okay, somewhere in the middle there, right in the middle. Core strengths that everybody has a piece of, but you have a top 5. And when people lean into those top 5 and find roles and positions and jobs that really help them cut or use them, what helps you be more successful. And so, do you remember your top 5 off the top of your head?
I do. I
I never
do.
remember mine, but what are yours?
Achiever, communication, input, includer, and empathy, which isn't a very popular one, but it's probably the one I lean into the most, for sure.
There's so much being written today about empathetic leaders and the need for empathy in leading. So that's super interesting. I actually haven't heard of somebody having that in their top 5.
It's
Daniel.
a rare one to be in the top, but it's my favorite.
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting one. And, with those other ones, I can see why you've been successful in your role. I mean, it's, learner, you're not afraid to learn new things. You got all the interpersonal stuff and you're leaning in. So that's really pretty cool. So you started at Rackspace in the chat team. You were chatter number 7, as I'm going to call you for now.
Number
And
7.
so tell me some of the next jobs that you had as you moved up through.
Yeah, so I stayed in support for a few years, and then ended up in account management, and partnered with a leader by the name of Kara Aranda to launch their first account management team or CSM team. And then kind of through that journey, I was ready to take the next step and become a leader, and was lucky enough to have the opportunity to be a cloud leader and actually managing chat. So it kind of again came full circle. Say that again, Jeff.
Right back to chat.
Right back to chat. I'm chat at heart. And so, I managed the chat team within our cloud support, moved over to managed operations, and then led our operations team within, lovingly called it the engine room at the time, but like our global technical support organization, and then landed at the last few years within operations and strategy, leading our leading NPS improvements across the company.
That's awesome. Well, Christine, it has been a delight to get to work with you for so many years, but then to get to spend some time with you here this morning. Obviously, you are doing great over at Bill.com. You came in. Everybody comes in for one role, and then they realize the talent they have, and they start moving you up.
Yeah.
Which is what they've done with you. So, and now you're a year. You celebrated your year anniversary over there. So, congratulations.
I did. Thank you so much.
Well, Christine, again, a delight to have you on the program today. We'd love to have you back in the future. Obviously, the audience has resonated well with your experience. Vicki also having empathy in the top 5. So
great.
Very rare. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Jeff. And nice to see everybody.
All right. Well, folks, what a great conversation with CK. Chatter number 7, if you want to remember her as that, I certainly will. Well, folks, this conversation and all of the other ones are available through the podcast and available through heading over to our website at Rackspace, which is rackspace.com/solve. Now, Solve is the thought leadership program here at Rackspace. And that means the only thing we have for you over there is information. We don't sell anything over at the Solve website. There's no chat that's going to come up. Chatter number 7 is going to be really sad because she gets no work over on the Solve website. But for us, it is a place where we share information. We do research. We do quarterly research. We have incredible articles on data, on security, on all of the cloudy things. So feel free to go over and check those out. And again, nothing's going to be sold to you there. The only thing we sell on this program actually is trying to get you to come be an employee here. So you've seen it pop up before. It's rackspace.jobs. You can head over to there. And hey, guys, I'm glad you enjoyed this session, but we've got another 5 or so minutes of content, so don't go anywhere because we're heading into one of my favorite parts, and that is where we talk about This Week in Cloud. And in This Week in Cloud, it's where we share news of what's going on in the cloudy world and why it is important to you. And first up out of the gates is an article that I found over at VentureBeat, and that is that CloudStrike has a new offering for as a service, cloud threat hunting inside of your organization. Can you believe that? That's incredible. So, there's a cyber skills gap. I mean, it's a ridiculous cyber skills gap. I don't remember how many hundreds of thousands of jobs are available in our nation here in the US. I can only imagine what it is globally. In fact, it's caught the attention of the president. He is bringing leaders together to help figure out how we solve that problem. Well, one of the ways we solve the problem is just let computers do it. So there is a new service over from CrowdStrike, sorry, a little tongue-tied after vacation, I guess. And but it is, it's a great name. It's a great name. It's called Falcon Overwatch Cloud Threat Hunting. How is that for a name? So if you're interested in learning more about that, just head over to, I guess, crowdstrike.com. Now, also in the news is the House of Representatives here in the U.S. has passed the National Defense Authorization Act for for our fiscal 2023 year. That happened about a week ago or 2 weeks ago on Friday. Now, the interesting thing is it has over 1,200 amendments to it. And there's some really interesting stuff in here. I've got a couple of them for you. But if you're here in the U.S., I'd encourage you to go check that out and read a little bit more about it. So some of the things that are in there is for the CISA director, there's a term limit of 5 years. Interesting. But they have actually mandated in the NDAA that they will be a federal investigation of the 2020 SolarWinds attack. So that'll be super interesting. And there is also in it, actually, the Texas representative, Tony Gonzalez, put one in there creating the National Digital Reserve Corps. National Digital Reserve Corps. Of course, we have reserves for all of our military government. Now we have a Digital Reserve Corps, and it is a partnership between federal government and civilians who are experts in their cyber field to be able to help the nation with cyber issues. So that'll be interesting to see how that comes together. Obviously, there's 1,198 other things inside of there. You're not supposed to see that screen. So go check those out if you have some time. All right, so that's This Week in Cloud. Let's go look at what's new in the cloud releases. As always, we're going to start from our fine friends over at AWS. AWS now has fault injection simulators. It now supports Chaos Mesh as well as Litmus experiments. Now, I already said that I like that name that CrowdStrike came up with their new thing, but I almost always want to put something in from AWS because they name their stuff so cool. So, I mean, Chaos Mesh, how awesome is that? But this is a service that allows you to use those services on your containers running inside of EKS. So if you're running containers in your organization and you're in AWS, I got some new, AWS has some new tools for you. So go check those out. From our friends over at Azure, they have a new service that is in preview, and that is you can share images across subscriptions, tenants with new compute gallery features. So before you used to have fancy keys to share things across so that you can have one grouping of images for your VMs. But now you can actually just share them directly, read-only versions, so that all of your tenants, all of your subscriptions can all consume from the same corporately controlled or provided images. Pretty cool stuff. And then last, but of course not least, from our friends at Google, Big Lake is now generally available. Now, what Big Lake is, it's a unified storage engine that simplifies data access for data warehouses and lakes by providing a uniform, fine-grained access control across multiple storage and open formats. Google just keeps doubling down in the data space. So making it easier and easier for you to get insights and controlled insights out of your data, whether that's just stored in BigQuery, whether that's in a data warehouse, whether it's in a data lake. Now you got Big Lake. Everything's big over at Google. I love it. It's pretty awesome. All right, so that's what's going on in cloud releases. As I mentioned before, we have nothing to sell for you here, just free information, except when it comes to the opportunity for you to come and be a part of the Rackspace family. Many of you have asked about in the chat today about how to get a job. It's as easy as going to rackspace.jobs. But today I want to tell you about one specific job, and that is a Microsoft 365 architect. That's available, a remote job, anyone inside of the US. But I tell you, I think we'll hire them all around the world. An Office 365 architect will understand the customer's business and technical needs by working with as an extension of the customer's team. Now, you'll be designing and implementing Intune and Defender and endpoint policies. You'll be building strong client relationships. You are the face of Rackspace to the customer. You'll be responsible for implementing and for the implementation of complex architectural designs. You'll do business analysis to make sure that we're implementing just the right stuff at just the right time. You need to stay informed of the latest of what's happening in technology, obviously very much so in the Microsoft ecosystem. You'll do root cause analysis when things go bump in the night. And it was one of my favorite. You'll deliver brown bag tech talks to internal groups to help grow the knowledge here inside of Rackspace, as well as inside of some of your customer accounts. So if you're interested in that job, if you're a 365 genius, just head over to rackspace.jobs. This one's on the first page. It's easy to find. You don't even have to search for it. But yes, we are also hiring for AWS engineers and architects. We are hiring for Azure engineers and architects globally. We have this killer offer called Elastic Engineering. Small team, we call them pods. They're dedicated to customers. We need to build more of them. And I'd love for you to be a part of that. We might get to hang out together. We might even bring you on the program. It'd be super fun. Come and hang out with us. Again, if you want to learn more about what's happening inside of tech, I'd love for you to head over to rackspace.com/solve. Killer information over there. Now, an episode would not be an episode if we did not thank our good friends over at AppDynamics. AppDynamics is the leader in full stack observability. So if you have your applications running in the cloud and you really want to understand that user experience, customer experience, like CK talked about, from end user all the way through to the inner workings of your database, and align those with true customer performance indicators or KPIs, AppDynamics is the place to do it. All right, folks. Next week we have a killer show, and we're bringing up. This isn't the right logo. but it does get the point across. Our next gen employees, we're bringing our summer interns on the program. You're going to want to meet these folks. I think there's about 6 or 8 of them. My son Benjamin is even one of them. You're going to get to meet him. And what they've learned, you talk about people starting young in their career, but with at a great company. So I'd love for you to be here next week for that. You know what that means? It's the end of another show. So be here next week for the Next Gen program. We'll be here at Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. We'll see you on another episode of Cloud Talk Live.